Aliens made us their maids by law. We must obey all humans. The floor was shining, but Tom kept scrubbing it with tired arms and a blank face around him. Stood tall aliens in silver robes, sipping glowing drinks while laughing at something he could not understand. Their language was always fast, always loud, always full of pride. One of them tossed a glass on the floor near his feet and pointed down with a smirk. Tom slowly bent, picked it up, and placed it in his cart without saying a word. This was not Earth anymore. This was Zoral Prime, the capital of the new empire, where humans were no longer free. The war had ended years ago, and humans had lost badly as part of the surrender agreement. All humans were labeled as Class 5 labor species, which meant they were to serve alien masters for the rest of their lives by law. Every human was to obey without question. Tom had been working inside the royal palace for 6 months. Now he wore a gray uniform and carried a cleaning device strapped to his back. He was silent, careful, and invisible. He had learned early that attention led to punishment and questions led to pain, but today something felt different. As he turned into the main hallway of the East Wing, he noticed one of the alien servants walking toward him. She was young with violet skin and wore the maid robes that marked her as a junior caretaker. Her name was Lara. She always moved with grace and kept her eyes low like she was afraid of her own shadow. Tom tried to look away and keep working, but Lara slowed near him and pretended to trip. Her hand brushed his wrist for less than a second, but something small slid into his glove. Something cold, flat, and sharp-edged. She did not stop or speak. She just walked past like nothing had happened. He kept scrubbing until his heart stopped racing, then glanced down. Inside his glove was a silver data chip etched with tiny lines. He recognized it. It was human tech, old Earth design, highly illegal here on Zoraltum. Knew he should throw it away or at least hide it, but curiosity burned through his fear. He waited until nightfall, when most aliens left the palace for their floating sky homes, then slipped into the supply closet behind the waste units. He knelt, pulled out the chip, and inserted it into the side of his cleaner unit. The screen blinked blue. A soft voice spoke from the unit speakers. "You are hearing this, then you are a human in captivity, and the last piece of Earth's truth still survives. This message is part of the human archive, a collection of forbidden knowledge hidden before our fall. The war was not lost, it was stolen. Your people were betrayed. Your freedom was sold in secret." Tom froze, staring at the blinking light on the screen, his breath caught in his throat. The voice continued. "The Zorelian High Table never voted on the Human Servitude Act. It was forged by military generals who erased the records. We have proof, names and files, everything you need to show the galaxy the truth." Message cut off, and the screen returned to normal. He sat there in silence, his head spinning. He had always believed humans were just weaker, that they lost fair and square, and this was the price. Now he knew that was a lie. Then next morning he acted like nothing had changed. He cleaned the same halls, carried the same buckets, avoided the same stairs, but inside his chest a storm had started. Lara passed him again that afternoon. She glanced at him just once, and in her eyes he saw it. She knew he had listened. Later that day, an announcement echoed through the halls. All human servants were to report for inspection. Commander Krell himself would attend the palace to check for contraband. Tom's hands went cold. Krell was feared by all humans. Tall, brutal, and merciless. Any found with forbidden tech would be executed without trial. Tom ran back to the closet and pulled the chip out of his unit, but before he could hide it, the door creaked open. Lara stepped inside and shut it behind her. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Give it to me. I will hide it. They will search you first. You're always too quiet, too careful. They are watching you." Now he hesitated, then handed it to her. She slipped it into the lining of her robe and turned to leave. "Thank you," he whispered. She looked back with sadness in her eyes. "Don't thank me yet. The real danger is just beginning." That night alarms blared across the palace. Guards in black armor stormed the sleeping quarters, pulling humans from their bunks, scanning every bag, every pocket, every tool. They found nothing on Tom. But Krell was not pleased. "Someone has been spreading human lies," he shouted. "Someone is trying to rewrite history and break the law of obedience." He ordered a public gathering in the main courtyard. Every human and servant was forced to stand in silence. Krull paced before them, his boots loud against the tiles. If we find one more piece of human tech, one more whisper of rebellion, there will be no trials, only fire. Tom stood among the crowd, but his mind was racing. The archive was real. Lara had hidden the chip, and Krull was close to losing control. First crack had appeared in the walls. The guards left and the crowd dispersed. Lara appeared beside him. Her hand brushed his again, and a tiny note dropped into his palm. Midnight, South Tower roof. He looked at her, but she was already gone at midnight. Tom climbed the servants' stairwell up to the roof of the South Tower. The wind was sharp. The stars above looked strange. In this alien sky, Lara stood near the edge looking out over the glowing city below. She turned to him and said, "We are not just maids, Tom. We are the memory of Earth, and they are afraid of what we remember." He nodded but did not speak. The silence between them was heavy with understanding. The rebellion had not begun yet, but something had shifted. Something real and dangerous, and now nothing could stop. Italians made us their maids by law. We must obey all humans. The wind blew hard on the South Tower roof, but Tom did not move. His eyes stayed on Lara, who stood like a statue under the moonlight, her robes swaying in the breeze. She held the chip tightly in one hand, her voice low and steady. "There is a secret room in the palace below the archives, sealed by the aliens after they rewrote the law. It holds documents, recordings, everything we need to prove the truth. If we can get inside and connect this chip to the old data console, we can unlock it." Tom stared at her, unsure if it was bravery or madness that led her here. She looked so calm, so certain, like she had nothing left to lose. "How do we get in?" he asked softly. Lara took a breath and said, "Tomorrow night the guards will be distracted. The Emperor's son is hosting a sky hunt, and most of the elite will leave the palace. That is our chance." Tom nodded and followed her back down the stairwell, each step echoing like a drumbeat in his chest. The plan was simple, but the risk was death. The next day passed slow and tense. Tom scrubbed floors and wiped glass, but his mind was elsewhere. He watched the guards come and go, watched how the alien nobles prepared for the sky hunt, shining their weapons and bragging about their prizes. One of them pointed at a human servant and joked that hunting humans would be more fun. Everyone laughed except the humans. The sun set and the sky hunt ships lifted into the air. Tom met Lara near the east gate, dressed in plain gray robes. They blended in with the cleaning crew. Lara held a tray of tools, and Tom carried a mop. Both of them moved quickly, but carefully, never speaking, never looking suspicious. They entered through the servant tunnel behind the kitchen, then slipped into the Hall of Scrolls, where ancient records were once kept before the new regime destroyed the old laws. Most of the room was sealed by force fields, but Lara pointed to a panel behind a statue. She pulled out a small device from her robe and pressed it to the panel. A soft click, and the wall shifted open. Inside was a narrow stairway leading down into the dark. Tom followed her step by step, heart pounding with every sound. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer, until they reached a heavy steel door. Lara pressed the chip to the console, and it beeped twice, then unlocked. Room beyond was full of dust and silence. Shelves lined with metal tablets and glowing spheres. In the center stood a single console with a cracked screen. Tom stepped forward and placed the chip into the port. The console flickered, then came to life. "Welcome, human," the voice said softly. "You have accessed Archive Vault 17, downloading Earth War logs." Now lines of data flowed across the screen. Tom and Lara watched. In all, names of generals, documents of secret meetings, voice recordings of alien leaders planning the war not to win, but to enslave. The recordings revealed that peace talks were sabotaged, and the law-making human servants was never approved by the council. It was created by Krull and his allies in secret. Tom's fists clenched as he listened to the truth. His people were not weak. They were betrayed. "Take this," Lara said, and handed him a small sphere. "This will store the full data. We can show it to others. We can spread the truth." Suddenly a loud alarm echoed through the halls. Red lights flashed and the steel door slammed shut behind them. The console hissed and sparked, shutting down. "They are coming," Lara whispered. Tom grabbed the sphere and shoved it into his pocket. They ran to the other exit deeper into the archive tunnels with the sounds of boots chasing them. Krell's voice roared through the halls. You think you can defy the law? You think humans can rise again? You will be crushed like insects. Tom and Lara turned down a side passage and climbed into a ventilation shaft, crawling through the narrow space. They reached a vent that opened into the servant laundry room. They dropped down covered in dust and sweat. No one noticed them as they mixed with the workers and slipped back into the main halls. That night in the servant quarters, Tom could not sleep. He held the sphere in his hands, staring at it like it was fire. It contained everything: the truth, the key, the reason they suffered. Lara sat beside him, whispering, "We can use the palace communication tower. We can hijack the signal and show the galaxy what they did." Tom nodded but said nothing. His mind was spinning with questions. What if they failed? What if Krell caught them? What if no one cared? The next day came with dark skies and louder whispers. The humans in the palace felt something changing. They saw how Tom and Lara moved, how they no longer looked down, how they whispered to others, shared looks of hope. Krell noticed too. His patrols doubled and inspections became brutal. He walked the halls with his blade drawn, daring someone to defy him. Then it happened. One of the older human workers was dragged into the courtyard, accused of hiding stolen food. He begged for mercy, but Krell raised his weapon without pause. Tom stepped forward and shouted enough. The courtyard fell silent. Krell turned, eyes burning. "You dare speak without permission," he growled. Tom walked into the center of the crowd and held up the sphere. "You say we are slaves by law, but this holds the truth. You forged that law. You lied to your own people." Krell laughed and lunged forward to take it. But before he could reach Tom, Lara pressed a button on her wrist. A small drone lifted from her robe and flew upward fast and high, reaching the sky above the palace. Then it flashed and began transmitting. Across the sky, a giant hologram appeared, showing the council chambers from years ago, the secret recordings of generals planning betrayal, the fake signatures on the law, the faces of those who built the lie. The aliens watching gasped. The nobles dropped their glasses, the guards froze, and even some of them stepped back. Krell screamed and ordered the drone destroyed. But it was too late. The signal had already been copied and bounced across the system. Tom stood tall, no longer afraid. "We remember who we are." Lara stepped beside him and said, "And now so will everyone else. Aliens made us their maids by law. We must obey all humans." The palace was silent in a way it had never been before. No music, no laughter, no orders. Just silence, the kind that holds its breath before something big. Tom stood at the edge of the courtyard, his eyes scanning the sky where the hologram had played hours ago. The truth was out now. It had spread faster than anyone could stop it. The fake law, the secret betrayal, the stolen freedom, all of it had been seen by thousands, maybe millions. Lara stood beside him, her shoulders straight, her face calm, but her hands trembled just slightly under her sleeves. Inside the palace, chaos was growing. Some aliens were angry, shouting that it was all lies. Others were silent, unsure, afraid. The guards were divided, some still loyal to Krell, others confused and unwilling to act. Krell himself had vanished since the broadcast. His private quarters locked down, his personal guard missing. Tom knew this was just the beginning. The truth was out. Yes, but truth alone did not bring freedom. There had to be action. There had to be risk. He met with Lara again that night in the old supply room near the waste units, the same place where it all started. "We need to move fast," she said, "before they try to erase it all, before they shut down the palace and blame it on a security breach." Tom nodded. "I know, but we cannot do it alone. We will not," Lara said, and opened the door behind her. 3 humans stepped in behind her. One was Mira, a quiet gardener. Another was Ben, who worked in the kitchens. And the last was Leo, who fixed lights and machines. All of them had seen the hologram. All of them wanted change. They formed a plan, simple and dangerous. They would reach the main control tower on the palace roof. From there they could send the full archive to the outer colonies and off-world stations. The Empire could block signals on this planet, but not everywhere and not forever. Next night they made their move, wearing cleaner uniforms and carrying toolboxes. They walked through the palace Halls like any other work crew, nobody looked twice. But just as they reached the stairwell, a loud voice echoed from above. "Stop. Where you are." Tom froze, heart-pounding. Grell stepped out from the shadows, his blade drawn, his eyes wild with fury. "You thought a message would break us," he hissed. "You think truth matters in an empire built on strength?" His guards appeared behind him, weapons raised. "Surrender now and you will live as servants, disobey and you die as fools." Lara stepped forward, holding up drone control. "The world saw the truth," she said. "Even if you kill us, it is too late. The lie is broken." Krell laughed and raised his blade, but before he could strike, a sharp noise rang through the air. A stunned pulse from behind one of the guards collapsed. Another dropped his weapon in shock. The humans were not alone. From the opposite hallway, a group of palace guards marched forward. But they were different. Their armor scratched, their eyes steady. They stood beside Tom and Lara, not against them. Their leader, a young alien named Rico, raised his hand. "We saw the broadcast," he said. "We serve justice, not liars. Your time is over." Krell, the traitor general, screamed and charged forward, swinging wildly. But Tom met him in the center of the hall. The blade missed by inches as Tom ducked and tackled him to the floor. Both men crashed down hard. Krell was stronger, faster, but Tom had something more than muscle. He had purpose. He had rage. He had years of silence burning in his chest. They rolled across the tiles, fists flying, until Tom grabbed a fallen rod and struck hard across Krell's face. The general fell back, groaning. "It is over," Tom said, breathing heavy. Krell spat on the floor. "It will never be over as long as humans breathe." "Then you should be afraid," Tom said, and stood tall with the path clear. The group rushed to the stairwell, up flight after flight, until they reached the tower at the top of the palace. The air was cold, the wind sharp, but the control panel still worked. Lara handed the archive sphere to Myra, who plugged it into the tower port. The screen lit up with dozens of signals. "Ready to broadcast, ready to scream the truth into the stars." "Do it," Tom said. Myra pressed the final button, and the tower pulsed with energy messages, flying across space, hitting receivers on colony station ships, every place that still had a human heart. For the first time since the war, a human voice filled the stars, not as a cry for help, but as a roar of defiance. "We are not your property. We are not your servants. We are the children of Earth, and we remember." Tom stood watching the stars, knowing that somewhere out there others were hearing it. Others were rising. Lara touched his arm softly. "We changed everything tonight." "Yes," Tom said, "and we will finish it." The palace below was in panic. Orders shouted, systems failing, but it did not matter. The world had changed. Krell was captured, the law exposed, and the rebellion no longer hidden. In every corner of the empire, humans lifted their heads for the first time in years and saw hope, not chains. The fight was not over, but the silence was broken. Aliens made us their maids by law. We must obey all humans. The palace was alive with noise and confusion. Alarms ringing, voices shouting, feet running the great walls of Zoril. Prime trembled under the weight of change. No one knew what was real anymore, or who could be trusted. Tom and Lara moved fast through hidden corridors, past broken security cameras and locked doors, their small group growing. As other humans joined them, more came from the servant quarters, the kitchens, the maintenance halls, all hungry for freedom. High Table, the alien council that ruled the empire, gathered in their chamber. High above the city, they looked down at the chaos through crystal windows, their faces cold and unmoving. But inside, fear grew like a dark storm. One of the council members, a tall alien named Valen, spoke. "The humans have broken the law and the peace we made. This cannot stand. The law is clear. Humans are property and must obey the ruling species." Another voice answered, "But the evidence is undeniable. Krell forged the law. In secret, the galaxy will not accept this, and neither should we." The debate raged, but no decision was reached. The council was divided. Some wanted war, others sought compromise. Back in the palace, Tom and Lara led the humans toward the great central hall where the law books were kept, the ancient records. They hoped to find the proof they needed to challenge the High Table officially. Entered a vast chamber lined with towering shelves filled with glowing scrolls and metal tablets. The air was thick with dust and forgotten time. Lara moved to a console, and connected the archive sphere. The screen lit up with holograms of laws old, and new maps of galaxies, and lists of species. Tom searched for the Human Servitude Act, the law that bound humans to slavery and servitude. He found it hidden deep in a locked file, encrypted and stamped with false signatures. Reached out to touch it, and the room shook. Suddenly alarms blared, and the doors slammed shut, locking them inside. From the shadows came the sound of footsteps, heavy and slow. Krell had returned with his loyal guards, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "You think you can rewrite the law? You think you can undo what was done?" he snarled. "You will die here, and your rebellion will be forgotten." Tom stepped forward, voice steady. "The law you speak of is a lie forged in blood and fear. It has no power when the truth is shown." Krell laughed bitterly. "Truth is power only to those strong enough to hold it, and I am stronger than you all." The battle began. Fierce and brutal steel clashed against makeshift weapons. Tom fought with everything he had, but Krell was relentless. Lara used her knowledge of the palace systems to disable security cameras and open escape routes for their group. The humans fought not just for themselves, but for all who had suffered under the false law. Their cries filled the hall with courage and pain. Just as Krell raised his blade for a final strike, a blast of energy knocked him back. A group of alien guards led by Rico appeared. They had come to help the rebellion. Together they forced Krell and his followers to retreat. The doors unlocked, and the humans poured out into the corridors, free once more, but aware the war was far from over. Outside the palace, the galaxy was watching. Transmissions from the control tower spread across worlds, showing the truth about humans, and the forged law. Voices rose in protest from alien planets and stations, demanding justice and equality. Some sent aid, others threatened to sever ties with the Empire if the rebellion was crushed. Tom and Lara stood on the palace steps, looking out at the crowd of humans and aliens gathered below. Hope and fear mixed in the air. "We have made them see us," she said, "but this is only the beginning." Tom nodded, eyes burning with determination. "Freedom is not given, it is taken, and we will take it all." Sun rose over Zoral Prime, casting long shadows across the city. A new day for humans, a day where they could finally stand tall and be heard. Aliens made us their maids by law. We must obey all humans. The palace was quiet now, but the air was thick with tension. Tom stood at the highest balcony, looking over the city lights that flickered like distant stars beneath him. The war for truth had changed everything, but the final fight was still ahead. Lara joined him, her eyes tired but shining with hope. Together they had sparked a rebellion, not just of strength but of minds and hearts. The humans were no longer slaves, they were fighters, and soon they would be free. Inside the grand chamber, the high table gathered again, but this time the mood was different. The evidence of Krell's lies was undeniable. The forged law was exposed, and the galaxy was watching every momentful. In the council, leader sighed and spoke softly. "The Empire has been wrong. The law that bound the humans is void. It is time to end the servitude and restore justice." But not all agreed. Some feared losing control and power. They whispered about rebellion, punishment, and war. But the voice of the people was louder now, and the humans stood with allies ready to claim their place. Tom entered the chamber, surrounded by humans and alien supporters. The room fell silent as he stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "We come not for revenge, but for fairness. We want peace, respect, and the right to live free." Lara stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, strength and courage shining in her eyes. The council listened as Tom spoke of years of pain, betrayal, and hope, the story of a people who refused to be broken. The decision came slow but sure. The law of servitude was repealed. The humans were declared equal citizens, free to live and work and dream. Their chains broken not by violence alone but by truth and unity. Outside the palace, the crowd cheered. A new era was born. The humans raised their heads, proud and strong, no longer maids but equals. The galaxy had witnessed the fall of lies and the rise of justice. Krell was captured and faced trial for his crimes. The Empire promised reform and peace. The humans began rebuilding their lives, learning to trust again and dream again. and Lara stood together looking at the stars above. Freedom was hard-earned, but sweeter for the struggle. The future was theirs to write. Tom smiled and said, "The law made us maids, but now the law belongs to all of us." Lara nodded and whispered, "Together we are free." The night sky stretched wide and full of promise. The end of one story and the beginning of many more. The end.